Today is very much about what we do next. I'm glad to hear Anne from the SPV and the Cabinet Secretary both say that they felt that the report is a fair assessment of where we are, because I think it's very important that we're honest about the major challenge that we face. And that's the only way we're going to be successful, quite frankly. We need strong scientific underpinnings for what we do. We need to have evidence to make a proper diagnosis and then carry out the cures, shall we say. It is a report with some positives and negatives. It is a report where you have 7 who are on target and on schedule to meet our targets, which is great. But that leaves 12 where there is progress towards target, but it's not sufficient, and 1 where, as has been observed, we're actually moving away. The positives, of course, Scotland is the first nation to report on all 20. I would like to think, partly because I was part of the team that produced this report, along with Simon Foster and Debbie Bassett, who are here in the audience today, and with the help of Camilla Fraser, who's also here. So I would like to think that we set a standard in both transparency and accuracy, but reporting is just a tool, and it's what we do about this that matters, and this is where you all come into it. So we're going to go through these 4 major points, and hopefully we'll end up having some ideas what we can do. Biodiversity is international, and this report is international. Each region around the world has its own iconic species, its iconic habitats. I hate that word iconic, but I can't really get away from it. Whether it's a Sumatran tiger, the Titan arum, or the polar bear, or closer to home, our own charismatic species, such as the wildcat, the Scottish primrose, and near to my own house, the bottlenose dolphins in the Moray Firth. And these species are charismatic species. They're great at getting people interested, great at keeping us all motivated. We've probably all got our own favourite species. I might try and sneak one of mine in later. You'll spot it from groans from colleagues. But for all of this charismatic and this motivation, we need to have a systematic approach to conservation, and that starts from a systematic approach to reporting. We've used these symbols to make it really simple. I think someone said that you've got to make it simple for young people. I possibly take slight issue with that. You've got to make it simple for everyone. Young people are frequently the best ones at wading through the detail and saying, did you know, fascinating fact, there are only 2 places in the world you can find northern prongwort, and it's a tiny little wee thing, but it grows to 20 centimetres. It's just found in Scotland. It's a Ben A, isn't that wonderful? Great. Kids love that kind of fact. I can only remember that because I wrote it down yesterday. I tend to forget these things. It's an age thing, I guess. We also have to remember where we're starting from. Scotland is not, for all we all love the place, it is not a pristine landscape. This is not the Amazon. And whilst this report is about numbers, we work in a sector because we're fascinated by nature. It's not really because we like trend lines or a well-constructed pie chart, although I do have some colleagues who love both. I just want to give us a little bit of context for what Scotland is like. This is a picture of Glasgow from 1912. It could be any of our industrial cities, quite frankly. And you look at the same sort of areas now, and you've got the River Clyde. It's a place for recreation. We've got at the bottom there the Forth Clyde Canal, which is becoming a haven for wildlife. And with our green infrastructure strategic intervention, that's looking at urban areas in Scotland, bringing people together with nature. And it also goes back to something someone said about connecting places together and multiple uses of nature. It was the Cabinet Secretary, there we go. So I'm in a good company there. And we can make places that are good for nature and good for people. Yeah, I'm going a little bit of a personal digression here, which I haven't got time for, but I don't really mind. I grew up initially in Tyneside and ended up in a small and quite squalid pit village with Andy Doran over there. who I didn't meet at the time, bizarrely enough. I think it's because he's some generations older than I am. But when I was a kid, the Tyne was biologically dead. The only animals you saw in there were dead cats, or occasionally dead suicide, or dead people. And the Tyne is very like the River Clyde. Same historical legacy, same industrial legacy. And that industry kept our ancestors in jobs. It's left us with something to clean up. And now, though, we can look at the Clyde, and this is a thing put together from YCPA, and it shows on the left what the Clyde would have looked like for salmon. And then by the 150 years ago, roughly, there were no salmon left in the Clyde because of the pollution. And ultimately, in the 1950s, that was pretty much all the salmon-suitable rivers in central Scotland. And then you look at the one on the right, and that's 2002, and things have got better since then, where rivers start to open up again. They're becoming suitable habitat for salmon, for otters, for seals going in. I mean, I was at Central Glasgow the weekend. There was a seal popping around in the Clyde. Brilliant progress. And that shows that we are achieving some things. Reasonably cheerful. Anyway, we'll go through some of the targets. I'm going to focus, I'm afraid, on the negative ones, because that's me. Pollution reduced. This is something where, like I said, we've done a lot. And the Clyde's symptomatic of a lot of Scotland, but we still have problems, whether that's air pollution, and things like the low emission zones in Glasgow will help to tackle this, but they haven't yet. And we see the signs in sensitive species, particularly bryophytes and lichens, where this pollution affects them. We've got agricultural runoff and agricultural pollution. Farmers don't want to pollute things, but it's a side effect in some cases of the way things work, and we have reflected this in our reporting. And worst of all, well, we talked about plastics. The people responsible for the bottom one? All of us, of course, because we do live in a throwaway society. I know a lot of us try to be green and avoid single-use plastics, but we all contribute to this problem. But all of this builds into our report because we have to say this, we have to be honest about it. And the yellow stuff, it's not like, it's not Chris Froome's urine sample from the Tour de France last year. That is water straight out of the ground there. A site in the Central Belt that was one of the world's largest chromate production sites, and that is water pumped straight out of the ground, bright yellow with the chromium pollution. So we do have a lot to do. We are not starting from an easy position, and the report, I hope, reflects all of that. So we've got this legacy of problems, and on top of that, the report reflects that we've got some new problems for the future, just to make things worse. We've got climate change, of course. We still have diffuse pollution in new forms, and we have this ongoing pressure over resource use. Three-planet living, we're at three-planet living, and we should be at aspiring for one. We've tried, in the way we've phrased it, because we wanted this not to be just a Scottish report, we wanted it something that would be useful for other countries too, to reflect worldwide issues. For many people around the world, this is the only way they can get clean water. For us, it's a hell of a lot simpler, of course. And drinking water standards in Scotland, something we all take for granted, is something that's improved markedly over the years. And that fits in with, you may be thinking, what's that got to do with biodiversity? But it's all to do with the provisioning services that biodiversity gives us. Some of these other benefits we get from our biodiversity. And it's overall, there are other bits in the provisioning services that aren't quite making it where we need to be. As I said, some countries have far worse problems than us in terms of deforestation. We've achieved a lot. We are improving areas of woodland, but there's quality as well as quantity to be achieved. Okay. This was mentioned already, I think it's possibly been done to death, but it is a very important thing. People care a great deal about biodiversity, about nature, and it's something that I know most of the organisations from already starting to harness, and that is a great thing. Policies increasingly recognise biodiversity values. I said that's on target. That doesn't always translate on the ground, and that's the slight problem. And We have reformed a lot of incentives, but we live in a world where we take some of the things for granted. We live in an oil-driven economy, so, and as an oil-producing country, we have incentives that favour oil production. It keeps a lot of people in jobs, but there is a downside to that. And this is a debate that we have to have a sensible debate about recognising that you know, we're happy to use the oil to power chainsaws on an RSPB reserve or roads on a SWT reserve, but there's a consequence of using that oil. We have achieved a lot. I mean, this is how power was generated in the old days when I was young and Andy was young. Now we're moving far more towards a low-carbon economy. Part of that is through our peatlands restoration project, which was also mentioned, and also we've got a greater share of electricity generated through renewables, which is good stuff. We do have a lot of site protection, which is good, and most of those, that number has changed the latest release. It's now down to 79.6%, but the bottom line is roughly 80% of our sites are in favourable condition. And that takes a hell of a lot of work, and it is a challenge to keep them at a good level, and it's a challenge that we're certainly not afraid of. But again, a lot of that relies on the bodies in this room continuing in their support to do that. We have developed a groundbreaking, I think as the Cabinet Secretary called it, measure of genetic diversity. That was through a team led by Professor Peter Hollingsworth of Botanic Gardens, and also a key role played by Professor Richard Enos, who is somewhere in the audience today from Battleby University. That work will be shared internationally at a conference next month in Beijing. Sadly, SNH is saving money and I won't be going, but I will at least send a report to it. And genetics, we've marked that as missing target. And that was we're deliberately harsh because we've developed a method. We haven't got as far as we want to on there. We are using some of the techniques in there for species as diverse as twin flower and the great crested newt. Oh, no grounds for my colleagues. Which is a great example of working with initially young people who discovered a new population, and then with farmers to produce a network around a protected site that's helped the species to spread, and working with academics to throw in the genetic component to ensure we're making the right interventions in the right place. Okay, no risk extinctions. Yeah, that's a fair comment. Since the last Scottish species to go globally extinct was the great auk, there may well have been some invertebrates that have gone extinct since then that we don't even know about. Presumably there'll be a great auk flea that went extinct with it. I don't know. But that's, quite frankly, that's not enough. We are seeing improvements for some species groups, but not across the board, and that is one of the challenges that, quite frankly, we need help on. Money, I think that's been covered. I should not mention that. The next one on there, sharing and applying knowledge. There'll be a workshop chaired by Ellen, who's somewhere here as well. The SPF review, I think, gives us great opportunities. That's the Scottish Biodiversity Information Forum review. As someone who does a lot of recording of wildlife in my own time, I'm sure a lot of people here do as well. We welcome any opportunity to help it become easier for people to record their wildlife sightings, and then for other people to take that data and analyse it and use it in a constructive way. So we've been doing work with the Biological Record Centre, people to use that data, to harness the power of that wonderful data. And also we have access to things via the ecosystem health indicators. I recommend them highly if you've not had a chance to look at them. It is a Scottish interpretation that is what we sell the world in our tourist brochures, which is great, that is Scotland, but there again, so is this. And this is where most of us live or grew up in, and we have to make biodiversity relevant to all, and that also, that's a win-win, I would say, not only to get people interested, but also helps biodiversity in towns become connected with ecosystems elsewhere. We've done some great work looking at the genetics, again, gene flow through some urban ponds, and found that actually there are really effective corridors. Things aren't becoming isolated. So you end up again with a sort of win-win, good health benefits for people, connectivity for wildlife, more resilience in the face of climate change. But again, that's something where we've got more challenge, and that will come out in some of the workshops, I think. The more people get to see things. So, what we'll say is that our team will soon begin drafting the next report. It's kind of a fourth road bridge in the old style kind of report. We'll just finish that one, just got it signed off, and we have to do the next one. I hope that you today will be sharing ideas, sharing successes. We like successes to go in there as well, and also, dare I say it, sharing failures, things that haven't worked, so at least we can learn from them. And today is very much a stakeholder event. It's your event. I imagine not all of you will have read the full 86 pages of the report, but at least looking at the summary bits of it, I'm sure you will have read enough around it to know where contributions are needed and welcomed, I should say. So please contribute towards helping us meet the biodiversity targets of 2020 and beyond. And I'll leave you with two of our charismatic species and a wonderful Scottish habitat. That would be the northern prongwort for those of you who don't quite recognise it. Oh, the other way. There was some sort.